The truth is out there. Knowledge is power. This is the Prepper Podcast Radio Network.
Are you sick and tired of having your First Amendment harassed or censored on Facebook? Use no more, as we now have a new alternative to Facebook. It's called Awareness Act. Awareness Act is a social network designed for patriots, to be used by patriots, and is ran by patriots. Stand up and help in the fight to protect your constitutional rights. Patriots can create pages, blogs, videos, documents, articles, and so much more. We even have a unique news feed system that allows you to share, read, or connect with any patriot on Awareness Act. We are a dedicated tool for patriots to use against the tyranny our Constitution is facing. So if you're tired of having your rights infringed upon, come check us out at www.awarenessact.com. Again, that is www.awarenessact.com, the social network for patriots, not potatoes.
Whether you take me for the fool, I know that I can be. Whether you see me eye to eye.
Are you storing food? Many preppers are storing food for months and years, but only have enough fuel stored for days or weeks. Stretch your fuel storage by harnessing the power of the sun with a sun oven. Food can be baked, boiled, or steamed at temperatures of 360 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit with the power of the sun. Depending on where you are located, you can use the sun for 50 to 80% of your cooking, allowing you to preserve your fuel storage for rainy days. Sun-baked foods stay moister and have less shrinkage and don't burn. Sun-baked roasts are tastier and more succulent, and sun-baked bread has unparalleled taste and texture. Water can be heated in a sun oven for purification or personal hygiene. For the past 25 years, sun ovens have been proudly made in the U.S. They are durable, have a long life, and come with a 100% satisfaction guarantee. For a discount coupon, email podcast@sunoven.com. That's podcast@sunoven.com.
Have you ever wanted to generate your own supply of electrical power, even save money on your electric bill? If so, this is going to be the most important message you will ever hear. Solar power generators are now available. These emergency backup systems provide life-saving electrical power when you need it most. Unlike gas generators, a solar generator runs quietly, emits no fumes, and produces electricity from the sun. It's like having an electric power plant running quietly in your own home. Run sump pumps, shortwave radios, computers, and even keep your food from spoiling. Whether it's hurricanes, ice storms, brownouts, or blackouts, you'll never suffer through painful power outages again. And here's the best news, a remarkable fall truckload sale going on right now that gets you $1,700 in bonuses when you buy a solar generator. To find out why solar generators are the best generators and get $1,700 for doing so, go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com. Generate your own supply of electricity. Go to falltruckloadsale.com. That's falltruckloadsale.com.
This is KPRN-DB, broadcasting worldwide from Southeast Oklahoma, USA to parts unknown.
Okay, well, welcome back. We're here with another episode talking about urban scenario. For those of you who haven't listened to the last few episodes on this, you might want to do that first. But basically, again, we're going through a scenario of not a lot of money, but you live in an urban area, maybe in an apartment, and what are some of the things you can do to prep? So far, just to kind of review, we've talked through water, we've talked about food, we've talked about some awareness type of stuff, some things that you can do that don't cost any money at all. And I think we're kind of moving on today. We're going to talk a little bit about shelter in general. In other words, the apartment itself and some of the things that come off of that. And we'll maybe move a little bit into defense and sort of security issues that you might need to be aware of. And maybe if we have time, we'll move into transportation and the eventual bug out if you have to do that as well. So again, I'm joined by Paul Range. And I'm happy to have him as always, and we're going to be discussing. So welcome, Paul, and let's take it away.
Yeah, when we're talking about shelter, we're fortunate that we live down in central Texas, and of course the winters down here are just not really bad. Once they're 8 or 10 years, it'll get down to 20 or so. But generally speaking, you can make it if you had to without a lot of heat. So let's just take, for instance, that you're living in an apartment, and the flag goes up, and you've got to make a choice. You've got to make a choice whether you're going to stay in place or you're going to bug out. So really, the best option is that you are where you are, and unless conditions are just extremely bad, like they're burning things all up and down the block, then staying in place is really a whole lot better thing. One, you've got, hopefully you've got food. Hopefully you've stocked up on a little water, and all your stuff's there. I mean, all your clothes are there, eating utensils, cooking utensils, and that type of thing.
That's good. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the point is, and I agree with you totally, is why, don't bug out for no reason whatsoever. We don't, unless you had some place that you knew that was already pre-stocked and you knew, or you had friends or family that you already knew you had a better place to go for some reason and you wanted to beat the rush out. Other than that, like Paul said, unless there's, violence going on up and down the street and they're burning people out, or there's something really horrible, going on that is just impending doom. You just know that it's really not safe to stay there anymore. Then there's really no need to leave. You have a den, you have a spot, you got to stay there and use what you've got.
Yeah, I agree. And besides, I mean, you're home. You're at a place that you know, and you know the neighborhood. You know how far it is to the grocery store. I mean, you know all these things. And that's assuming that there would be some services available. And, I'm not into that conspiracy theory thing where everything's just going to fall down flat. I mean, that's entirely possible. But generally, enough people are going to stick together to provide, some of those type services. And then again, if you're not in an apartment, let's just say that you're in a house. We all know just by looking at a house that it's totally indefensible. And that's an extremely good time to gather all your neighbors together and have a good talk, about, well, what are we going to do to kind of keep our neighborhood secure? I mean, there's already those things in place. I think the McGruff Neighborhood Watch is a perfect example of that. People are now not afraid to watch people coming and going and pick up the telephone, and call. Now, that may not be available, but, you might could at least alert your neighbors that there's something going on farther down the block.
Right. And I think, of course, we can get into any of these subjects in great depth, and of course, that's the whole idea of the school and the classes that we do, is we do get into them in great depth, and we can't really do that here on the podcast. But there's just a whole slew of things that go along with neighborhood defense and the communication and all that stuff that we could go into. But the general point, just to kind of skim the surface, is that it does help for sure to have neighbors and to band together. A little kind of a case in point on a story that I know of somebody who was on St. Croix. He was a friend of mine who was on St. Croix when Hurricane Hugo came through. I don't remember. I think that was late 90s, I believe, or mid 90s. And it was, I think it busted out the anemometers, the wind, the wind did at the, I want to say around 230 miles an hour, something like that. It was just, it was a category 5 storm, I believe. And it was basically as bad as a hurricane could be. And the eye of it went straight over that island. There's 3 islands there, but the one that he was on, which I think was St. Croix. And anyway, he tells the story of how there was this is a good disaster story, so so bear with me. But there was a National Guard armory on that island, and there was also a prison on that island where we used to extradite prisoners, like from South America, and like drug lords, people that were really bad, murderers, people that had no compunction about hurting other people. Well, the hurricane blew the roof off of the prison, basically, and it also blew apart the National Guard armory. So within a short period of time after the hurricane had passed, there were extremely dangerous people walking around basically with automatic weapons and ammo and hand grenades and stuff. And they just basically went into the town. There's really only one big tourist town there, I guess, and they, just kind of pillaged and raped and looted. Well, anyway, my whole reason for talking about this is the idea of shelter. So what my friend, his name is Greg, what he did was banded together with some folks that had an apartment building that they lived in. There was maybe 5 families or so in this kind of a small apartment. And it wasn't inside town; it was outside of town. And the trees had blown over, and so there really was no access. They were kind of up near the top of a hill, and they had pretty good visibility anyway from there. And they had the trees had blown over on both. There was only really 2 roads that went in there, and so there was the only way up there was by foot. And they had I think they had like a .22 and a handgun between them all, and maybe a couple dozen rounds at most. And they just and they had a bunch of food, all the electricity had gone off, so they just they grilled all their food up, and they basically just pulled watch, and they stayed up there, and they managed to round up a bunch of water, and they had I think they actually had some rainwater collection system there too, and there was rain afterwards, and they were able to get so they have everything that they pretty much needed, and they just banded together and pulled guard shifts, and they had to go out. They had a Jeep. And they went out and pulled a few other people in that they knew of and found them and pulled them back. And the point is that, out of this, kind of a, like you said, indefensible structure, which a house is, really indefensible unless you build it to be defensible. And none of us do, of course, unless we're, homesteading and actually doing it on purpose. But they with the group of people like that, he said there was a couple times where some people were coming up, checking out looters and stuff. And he didn't think it was anybody that was armed or wanted to hurt them necessarily, but we're checking them out, and at one point, one of them had to fire a shot in the air, and the guy turned around and ran. But that took care of it. They were fine. It took about 2 weeks until order was restored, or maybe even longer than that. But that's another, kind of interesting story, and just a case in point about, being able to defend an area like that, or an apartment building, or anything. It's difficult to do alone. It helps to have neighbors that are in there with you.
Yeah, that's really true. And you're trying to defend your homestead. Your actual home, and so you've got a vested interest in doing the best you can. Other than like where you had to evacuate maybe an apartment and go somewhere else and pull in with somebody else in town. Well, that's not your house, but you got to do the best thing you can. And, that kind of leads us into another area. If you had, or if you thought that you were going to bug out, let's say that you had an uncle that lived outside town, you don't want to show up on your uncle's doorstep with just empty hand. It'd be a good idea to cache maybe even a wall locker or two out in the shed or the barn, full of clothes and food. Food is fairly easy to store, like the stuff that we get from the LDS, Church of Latter-day Saints. It's dried food, and most of it is going to keep for 20 years. Well, hopefully you'd never have to use that. But if you got something that's mouse-proof and fairly bug-proof, it's going to last an extremely long time. And that would just be a stopgap. That if things got bad enough, you would have to leave.
Right, and so that's another point that kind of comes into this whole thing, is that you're not just necessarily planning around your apartment and around your bug out bag, but you're also thinking about, thinking ahead. If there are people in your family, or there's a location that you think is a good bug out location, or more than one, maybe there's 2 or 3. Don't be afraid to invest a little bit of money. It doesn't take much, into a couple of 5-gallon buckets like we talked about with food before, and have a cache. Set up a cache somewhere that's going to be something you can count on. Because you might be in a situation where you can't carry all that stuff in your car. You might have to be on foot, or on bicycle, or on a motorcycle, or an ATV, or whatever, where you don't really have the luxury of being able to haul a bunch of stuff with you. And like Paul said, the best way, think of this, how you would feel if you had a pretty safe location, and there was a big natural disaster of some sort, and your loved ones showed up. Of course, you're happy to see them and you want to help, but you'd be a lot happier to see them if they show up with all kinds of supplies and stuff with them, right? So kind of think of yourself that way. Don't ever think of showing up somebody's doorstep, empty-handed, unless you really had no choice and things just completely fell apart for some way or another, and whatever, in some circumstances, you're at work and there was no way to get home or whatever and get any kind of gear. So always be thinking of that as well. But we've kind of moved into the security thing really quickly here, and that's fine. I think we should talk a little bit about security. And what I wanted to talk about, if we got to this topic, was just a few things too about security by yourself. So assuming that you don't have other people to help you, you're all by yourself. What are some of the concepts that you should probably be aware of in terms of security for your apartment? And I think the first one we've really already touched on a little bit, but I want to just kind of review it, is just the awareness factor. And whether that's just you by yourself or whether it's you with a dog or a pet. A dog, obviously, you're probably not going to get a lot of use out of a turtle or a fish or even a cat, but a dog certainly, especially a larger dog, as kind of the awareness thing. And then also the whole exercise we talked about being aware of your neighborhood and doing, the 1 mile radius thing or 1 mile diameter thing, and that whole exercise of knowing where the ins and outs are around wherever you live, the ways in, the ways out, and the ways that somebody would want to sneak up on, your apartment or on you if they knew you had stuff. Now, the only reason anybody's probably going to want to affect your personal security is because they think that you have something they want, and that can happen very easily if you're displaying that. So I mean, those are the things you have to be really aware of, and so plain if another quick story, I promise. But one of my brothers is he's pretty well. He's kind of engineer type, and he's pretty well situated in with backup generator and stuff with his place. He lives in the middle of an urban area in Bellevue, by Seattle. And when they had a huge storm that wiped out power for, I think over a week, and he just to flaunt the neighborhood, he had all the lights on at night and was blasting the stereo and stuff because he had all the energy in the world, But that's not advisable at all. If things really break down, you don't want people to know that you've got food, that you've got water, that you've got power, and all the things that they need, or you're gonna very quickly find that you've got two types of people. One is people that you're gonna have to make a decision: are you gonna help them or not because they need help, and that's gonna limit your stores. And I'm not saying you don't want to be a good person, but you just got to bear that in mind. And the other is people that are physically able to or want to take what you've got away from you.
Yeah, that's true. In our urban survival course, we teach people that probably having a generator and all the noise that it creates, I mean, you cannot believe how loud those things are if everything else is quiet. And then, of course, you've got your lights on. I'm not sure I'd want to be the only place in several blocks that had the lights on. That's just like a magnet for people that are fairly undesirable. And that, might actually kind of lead us into another little area that you touched on real briefly is some way to defend, what we have. And of course, there's a million different theories and a million different ways that people have done that. In my opinion, if you're going to have a weapon and you're going to stay in one place and you're going to defend a home, a shotgun is probably one of the better choices. Yeah, they're a little bulky. And they're short range, but you're dealing with short ranges. And with a shotgun, you can have a variety of ammunition, all the way from birdshot through slugs and double-aught buck. And generally speaking, they're not the area weapon that people think they are. They don't have that big of a spread, even with an open choke. You're talking about 50 feet, a spread of about 1.5 feet. But if you're nervous and you can't see very well in the dark, that's a good option. And I don't know too many people, myself included, that will go up against the racking sound of a shell going in a shotgun. That's a pretty fearsome sound.
Yeah, that's just a psychological kind of deterrent right in itself, for sure. Yeah. I agree, and I think I think that's true. And I personally, shotgun is my favorite weapon just because I just love how they feel. I don't know. I like to have a weapon that when I shoot it, I know that pretty much anything in front of me is going to pretty much explode. I mean, that's kind of a male thing, I guess. But I do enjoy shooting shotguns. I'm not really much of a big weapons buff by any means. I mean, I can shoot, but I don't spend a lot of time shooting. But the shotgun is one of those weapons that I just enjoy shooting. And so I think that, like you said, the nice thing is that you get the versatility of the shotgun of whether you're going to be hunting fowl or whether you can use it to hunt, especially in South Texas in the brush here. Hunting with a slug, whether it's hog or deer or whatever, you're actually doing pretty well. I mean, none of your shots in this brush are going to be much more than about 100 feet anyway. Honestly, maybe 150 feet, and you don't have to worry about anything being deflected with the slug generally. And then you've also got a great home defense weapon as well, and it is bulky. So the downside of the shotgun, though, is if you got to move, then you have to advertise to everybody that you're armed, and that can be good and that can be bad. It's nice to not necessarily sometimes let people know you're armed, especially if they're armed, because they might want your weapon, and if there's more than one of them, and they set up an ambush or they see you coming, then you've got a fight on your hands, and you want at all costs to avoid any kind of confrontation. I mean, the best security advice I can think to give you personally is avoid confrontation. Avoid anybody knowing where you are, or who you are, or what you've got, and be aware of them long before they're aware of you. That's the best possible personal defense I could offer you in a couple sentences. But so barring that issue, then you move to having a handgun. And I know we're talking, the subject of this is on a budget, so we've kind of slipped out of that for a minute, but we'll come back. But if if you had a budget, or this is Texas after all, so you probably got a gun anyway. But if you couldn't use a shotgun, then I would say my next best choice for home defense would be maybe a handgun, a larger caliber I like the 45, but depending on your size, that may not be what you want. But the advantage then, of course, of having a handgun is that you can conceal it while you're moving around.
Yeah, that's always true, and I think, they're nice because you can stick it in your pocket and you can kind of forget about it, and if you absolutely need it, well, then you've got it in your pocket or you've got it in the holster. And I think a backup weapon, like for the shotgun, my choice is the 22, and everybody, says, oh, well, the 22 doesn't have any knockdown power, and that's absolutely true. It doesn't in that sense, but if you look at the FBI statistics, up through 1985, when they started importing the 9mm, the cheap handguns, especially through Florida, the 22 had actually killed more people in the United States than any other weapon, and in fact, all other weapons combined. And ironically, the 22 is also still to this day responsible for most all of the poaching deer kills. So it can be a formidable weapon, and the nice thing about it is that 550 rounds for the 22 weigh almost exactly what one box of 20 rounds for the shotgun weighs. So, that's a whole difference in amount of ammo.
Yeah, that, if nothing else, that is a huge point to be made. And if you've ever had to walk around with a lot of ammo on you, it's nice to be able to have a lot more rounds for the same amount of weight that you're carrying. And you're right about the 22. You're totally right. A couple of other points on that. I mean, one is the folks over there, I don't think you've been over to their property, but the ranch where we do our orienteering class at, they have about 4,000 acres. And the son of the woman who owns that ranch there has a big boar head on the wall, which he's not really the kind of trophy hunter, but this one was just very, it was large enough that it was like, wow, this is worth actually keeping. And, it looks like it was probably, I think he told me, and I don't remember, but I think it was about a 350 pound hog on their ranch. And their ranch is really overrun with hogs. I mean, it's they're trying to clear them out a little bit. But he killed that from, he shot that, I can't remember the distance, but I want to say he was about 60 yards with a 22 Magnum, a 22 LR, 22 Magnum. So, but it was, straight through the head, and there's no reason why you can't do all the hunting that you need to with a 22. I mean, small game is something that most people kind of don't even think about, but you're not going to, small game is much more practical for hunting in general from a standpoint of not having to take a lot of time to stop and clean it, much more, there's a lot more of it, if there really was a situation where a lot of people are hunting, everybody's going to be trying to go for deer, of course. So there's a lot of it, and I think you pointed this out yourself, Paul, that statistics show that most of the Native Americans' diet, their findings was, like 60 to 80% of it was small game, that the kids would go out and practice hunting, and they'd bring back the small game for everybody.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the interesting things is I've hunted deer for years, and of course normally we just cleaned them and skinned them and took them to the processing plant and had them processed. And this one time I thought, I'm just going to turn this whole deer into jerky. And I found out that was about a 20-hour ordeal, making one deer that probably weighed 200 pounds into jerky. So then I understood the stories of the Indians where they would bring a deer into camp and then divide it up between families, because, boy, for one person, getting all of that meat processed before it spoils is just a horrendous task.
That's right. It's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't understand that, if you haven't done that work yourself, how much is involved. Not to mention that you might not have the gear for it. You might not have the equipment for it. If you're down to just nothing but a knife and some rope, that's a lot. It's a lot of work to do. And if you don't have the transportation, etc. So yeah, I agree with you totally. Oh, and the other point I was going to say though about 22 was just in terms of humans, in terms of people. And I think you and I have talked about this before too. Is that in a situation where there's no medical care or limited medical care, you shoot somebody with a 22 once or even a couple times. And especially if it's anywhere in their body, anywhere in their trunk, you say from their abdomen up to their shoulders, and they're probably going to die. They might not die right then, but they're probably, without medical care, they're going to die. Oh yeah,
I had one of my good friends that was when I was in high school got shot with a 22 in a hunting accident. They had the 22 loaded and thought it was on safety and leaned it up against the fence and then crossed the fence, and of course it fell and it fired and shot my friend actually through the thigh, but it missed the brachial artery there, and he actually bled out in the 2 hours that it took them to walk from the river to town and get help and come back. So, and it was just what I would consider a minor hole.
Right.
And then, even beyond that, if you survive that, you're going to have some serious infection issues.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're going to have infection problems, and God forbid it's through the chest or whatever. You're probably going to, then you've got issues right off the bat. Even if the bleeding didn't get you, if you get shot through your lung, of course, it doesn't matter what caliber in that kind of a scenario.
Yeah, an ice pick will do it through the lungs. All you have to do is just get that seal gone, and your lung starts collapsing, and that's pretty well it.
We're going to divide this discussion up into several more digestible pieces of about 20 to 30 minutes each. So this is the end of this particular part, and we will pick it back up tomorrow or the next weekday. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, absolutely. What I've learned is that we'll take where I'm living now. Okay, so once a year there is a national night out that's been going on, and I live next door to a relative, and my relative and I, over the years of last 15 years, I guess, will set up the barbecue pit and cook burgers and hot dogs, and set up a bunch of tables and chairs in his front yard, and I will go down the street, and we're a small street. I'll go down the street, usually with one of my kids, and we'll go and invite everybody down. And as the years have progressed, more and more people have come down. Some people are like, okay, whatever. But, you're just meeting people, and you're just talking to people, and it eventually it opens up avenues of communication that weren't there before. So before before I knew the guy, or maybe I don't know the guy down the street, but since I sat and talked to him for, a couple of minutes that one time a couple of years ago, I now wave at the guy. Now we know each other. We're familiar with each other, and it actually builds a sense of community. Even though we don't have an intimate relationship, he doesn't know what I do. I don't know what he does. He doesn't know what my interests are. Still, there's that sense of familiarity, that sense of security, because we just have that unspoken, okay, we're neighbors, this is our street, and it's just that sort of thing. And that's kind of what I tried to do when I went out to my property. I went and I introduced myself, and it was just the weirdest thing, because my brother's like, "What are you doing, Joe?" I'm like, "I'm just going to go and talk to these people." So, I'm driving up to this one particular gate. This guy's got probably 500 acres, I guess. This huge, South Fork from Dallas, set up in this huge gate, and there's this long, winding way up to his house, And I'm driving up there in my beat-up truck and drive up, and he's out messing with his cows, and he comes up, and I introduce myself, and, hey, we bought this property down here, and just strike up a conversation, and it just went from there. It was just an immediate openness in communication, and, I got a history lesson on, what the area was about, and who was who, and who was related to who, and this and that, and, every time I see the guy, it's just, wave, or we'll have a quick conversation. But it's that like you said, it's opening up that your surroundings, because you can't do it on. I tell you what, Sam, that is what I have learned, Sam. You cannot do it by yourself. Absolutely not. I think at one time I was convinced that I had to. Well, I still am convinced. I got to protect my family, and it's me and mine, and that's it. But I've come to realize that me and mine can't do it. I'm a family of 5, and there's no way I could provide a level of security that even comes close to a level of security that you need. There's just not enough people. And so community, I absolutely would say that, whoever goes out and gets themselves a piece of property, meet the people, introduce yourselves, even if some of the introductions are a little unpleasant. I know that there was one particular neighbor that I introduced myself, and I'll just say he was an old codger, didn't want anything to do with us locals or us new people. But that showed me, okay, well, I'm going to stay away from that neighbor. No, it's actually been a wonderful experience. I've made some mistakes, but I've learned so much. And so anybody who's, open to the idea of going out and finding themselves a homestead, I absolutely encourage you to do it. It's an adventure. It's not easy. You're going to make mistakes, but I think it's totally worth it. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst that happens is it doesn't work out and you lose a little bit of money, or you sell it off and start over somewhere else. I mean, it's not that big a deal, in my opinion. That's my opinion. I'm sure I've heard some horrible stories. I haven't experienced them, but I've heard some horrible stories.
Well, and I think unless you just really make a huge mistake, or somebody rips you off, unless somebody really, scams you in some way or another, the worst that happens is you've got a piece of land. Land is not exactly going to drop in value any time, I don't think, and certainly not the way the times are becoming. And was reading a recent article about how a lot of the biggest investments right now are people with a lot of money, and by this I mean millionaires, billionaires are buying up farmland. That's the big thing now. I mean, I tell you, food is the next big resource, and what that means is water is the next big resource, because you can't have food if you don't have water. So I think there are a lot of people that see that writing on the wall, and there may be people that, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do think that if you took we're going on a tangent here just for a second, pardon me, but I think if you took the, let's say the 100 or even the 500 top most wealthy people on the globe, and put them out in a list, and you would be pretty naive to think that they have never talked to each other at all, that none of them have any, aren't watching. I mean, there's a reason why they have that kind of money. There's a reason why they got to that kind of money, and you don't get that kind of money without being aware of what future trends are. And so when you see things like the big tobacco putting their money into food, back during the lawsuits and and the whole tobacco thing. When you see things like the GMO stuff going on right now, and Monsanto, and patenting, all the stuff that you see, both medicinal plants and food plants, and this is probably a topic we don't want to get off on because it'll take a long time. But I mean, you see all those trends. I think you should always kind of be watching those kinds of trends on a social level, the same way that you watch the weather on a physical level. Because those things do predict a lot of what's going to happen to the rest of us, whether we want it or not to, we kind of get pulled along with it, and that's just the way it is, and so we got to deal with it. But I forgot now. I took a large tangent, but it's kind of good maybe that I did, because I wanted to change the subject anyway and say my wife would be mad at me if I didn't talk to you a little bit about couponing, because we've heard these rumors that you're like you're the guru of couponing, so we wanted to pick your brain a little bit on saving money and how you go about doing it. Just kind of what some of your methods are for saving money on your grocery bills.
Wow, that's a huge subject, but I will make it as simple as possible. Okay, so couponing. Let me start off by saying that there is a lot of information out there that will teach you how to do couponing. And toward the end, I'll go ahead and actually right now, I'll go ahead and riddle off two websites that I recommend a novice couponer to go check out, and even a non-novice, because they're good resources. One is going to be coupondivas.com, and the other is going to be Crazy Coupon Lady, and crazy is spelled with a K, .com. And those two, they've got little video tutorials, little 4 or 5 minute video tutorials on how to do the couponing and how to do the couponing in different stores. Honestly, I happen to be my wife was channel surfing, and we happened to cross a show called Extreme Couponing. And I was walking by, and I kind of just stood in the doorway, and I looked at it, and it's like, okay, that looks pretty simple. Let's see how this works out. Okay, so the idea of couponing is this, Sam. You basically get a coupon, and let's pretend that the coupon is for $1 off of deodorant. And okay, so $1 off deodorant. Let's say the deodorant sells for $2.50. Okay, so the idea is that you want to find that deodorant that sells for $2.50 normally. You want to find it on sale, or you want to find it on clearance, or you want to find a store that's got another matching coupon that'll stack with it. So we'll take Target, for example. Target has a website that they have e-coupons on, and you can print these coupons off their website. And Target policy is that they will stack one of their coupons with a manufacturer coupon. Not all stores do this, but Target's one of them that does it. So let's say Target has $1 off coupon for the same deodorant, and I have a manufacturer coupon for the same deodorant for $1. So now I have $2 off of this $2.50 deodorant. So now I can go buy this deodorant for 50 cents, in which in fact I have done that, but not because I printed out coupons from Target. It was a Target coupon. It was a sale they had. They had dropped it down to $1.50, and I had $1 off, and I was buying deodorant for 50 cents. It wasn't the deodorant that I was using, but I've got 3 teenagers, or I got 3 kids, 2 teenagers, and 1 preteen. And let me tell you what, it was a deodorant that they were going to use for the next year. I really stocked up on that deodorant, and it was such a good deal. And so literally, I have got probably a year's supply of deodorant now, and consequently, I actually started using it myself. I ran out of my own stuff. Tried it out, thought, well, this is not bad, let me just keep going with it, and so I have not had to buy deodorant for I don't know how long now. But that was one example of a super buy using coupons. Different stores have different policies. Here in the San Antonio area, we have a huge regional store called H-E-B. And H-E-B, the way they do their coupons, they really do some really nice sales. They have their coupons set up in, they have in-store coupons, and there's a little code on the in-store coupon. And I totally recommend that for those who want to go check that out, go to heb.com and they'll explain what they do. But they'll have a little code on the coupon, and the little code will be an M, an S, or I think it's a B. The M stands for manufacturer, the S stands for store, and I don't know what the B stands for. But their policy is that they will not stack a manufacturer with a manufacturer. So your coupon you're going to get out of the newspaper is going to be a manufacturer. So if you find an in-store coupon that has an M, it will not work. But if you find an in-store coupon that's got the other two codes, you can totally stack it. I have saved so much money, Sam. I swear to you that I am becoming a woman because I get excited about coupons now. My wife and I, we will on Sundays we'll buy one paper, and the papers here are $2. So we'll buy one paper and we'll see what coupons are in it. And if we like what's in it, we'll buy anywhere from 5 to 10 more papers, and so we're spending anywhere from $10 to $20 on papers. But we're only doing that because we're pretty confident that we're going to get that plus more in product back. That's not the only place that we're getting the coupons. Okay, so in the Sunday papers, you're going to have what are called inserts, and those inserts are going to be one of them is called Red Plum, another is called Smart Source, another is Procter & Gamble, and I think there's a fourth, and I don't remember what it is. But again, all that information is available online. Normally, a paper is going to put out 2 inserts usually. I've gotten as many as 4 inserts, and that was wonderful. The real moneymaker on couponing is actually to try to get as many coupons as possible without actually having to buy the coupons or buy them as cheap as possible. After doing extensive research, I found out that there was a local paper put out by the main paper, but there's a local weekly paper called Conexion. It's kind of a Spanish-English thing. They put out one insert, and it comes out on Thursdays, and usually it's a Smart Source. And the thing about that paper is it's 25 cents. So I'm able to get an insert for 25 cents that I would normally have to pay $2 for on Sunday paper to get that one insert. So consequently, when I find good coupons, I will go on Thursdays and I will hunt down. I've got my locations now of where all the little Conexion vending machines are. They're usually near restaurants. And I won't clear them out. I'll take maybe half of their load. But, I'll dump, $2 or $3 on a machine, maybe dump down $5, and I've got 20, 30 papers sometimes. Excuse me.
Right.
And I've got all these coupons. And the only reason I'm getting the coupons is because I've already researched and found out that there's a particular item that I want to buy either free or cheap. Now, when I say free, there has been some instances where I have actually gotten items for free. We'll take an example. There was, the first time I did it, there was a coupon for Casey Masterpiece barbecue sauce. H-E-B was running a sale for $1. They had dropped the price to $1. Well, there was a coupon for $1, so I was literally getting it for free. That's basically what really hooked me was the whole free thing because I was like,
can't beat that one, yeah.
I was, and I've had people tell me, now I'm jumping around here, but I had someone tell me, well, why are you getting so much? I think I ended up getting 30 bottles of that barbecue sauce. And my brother told me, he was like, Joe, what the heck are you going to do with 30 bottles of barbecue sauce? So I actually ended up giving a lot of it away. But I ended up actually storing some of it in my bug-out spots. And he's like, well, what do you mean bug-out spots? I said, well, you know what? Wild game, rice, and beans is probably going to be a lot tastier with some barbecue sauce. And it cost me absolutely nothing. So those have actually been added to my bug-out, my bug-out spots, to my food storage. One other thing that we had decided to do, my wife and I, as the economy's gotten a little worse, last Christmas was really hard for us. And we were not seeing that this next Christmas was going to be any easier. So what we decided we were going to do is, with our extra coupon stuff, we were going to go ahead and do Christmas baskets of coupon goods. We were basically, put like a goodie bag basket or whatever of just across-the-board stuff that we have gotten throughout the year. So we're actually kind of excited, looking forward to seeing what the basket looks like. It's going to be everything from deodorant to barbecue sauce to, handy wipes to whatever we've gotten on sale. And let me tell you, Sam, we have gotten some pretty sweet sales. I think our best deal so far is our bill. We had a bill for $93, and we ended up paying $13 for it.
Wow.
And that was mostly because most of the stuff we were getting was for free. We've made some mistakes. When I say mistakes, there's kind of a no you do, and I didn't know this in the beginning, but now I know it, so I make sure I don't do it. There's a thing that you'll see on the show if you see extreme couponing where they will clear off shelves. I kind of did that a couple of times. I cleared off the shelf. I had all these coupons, and oh yeah, I'm getting as much as I can get, and it's, you know, awesome. And then I kind of felt kind of guilty and bad about it after the fact. You know, after it was all said and done, I was like, man, you know what? Anybody who's going to go and buy that product, anybody else who has that coupon, now can I go to that store because I've done cleared off their shelves. So consequently, that's one of the things that I recommend people who are going to coupon. Try not to clear off the shelf. Maybe take half of it if you have to. But if you're in an area like me, I'm in San Antonio, I literally have 5 HEBs between my workplace and my house that I could hit up. So for me, it's not a big deal to do, you know, to take a little here, a little there, a little here. I know there's individuals who live in rural, more rural settings where you really literally have one store. So, okay, you do what you got to do, but clearing the shelf is kind of frowned upon. I know I went on a tangent there, but I'm just throwing that little hint out to people who are interested in couponing. Probably don't want to do that if you can.
Right. So there is that's good. I mean, these are all really good, and yeah, as you would imagine, there is an etiquette as such to couponing. It sounds like it's a little bit of a subculture and one that I don't know anything about, and it sounds very interesting when you start talking about things that are actually free. That of course pretty much perks anybody's ears up. And you can't get much better than that unless you can get the store to maybe pay you to take it off their shelf. That's about as good as you could possibly get, I think, is getting it for free. So those are really, I think that's fine. I mean, that's a lot of information right there, and we'll put those links. You said, if you could repeat them, one was Divas, something Divas?
It was Coupon Divas.
Coupon Divas.
Yeah, coupondivas.com. And
what was the other?
crazycouponlady.com, and crazy is with a K. Although you could probably spell it with a C and it'll pop up anyway.
Okay, well we'll put those links up on the blog, you know, on the website for the blog when we put up this blog. But I'm sorry, this podcast. I mean, so that's really good stuff. I think we've been talking for quite a while, and I just wanted to maybe approach one more subject if you have a little bit of time.
Sure,
it's just,
go for it.
Okay, let's just talk a little bit. I'd like you to share anything. I mean, you kind of did with the homesteading anyway, but are there any classes at the Human Path or things that you've done at the Human Path that you feel are helping you out in terms of what you're doing kind of from day to day and with your family, with your, you know, aside from obviously all the homesteading stuff we just talked about, but if there is, you know, and if you want to share, then maybe we could go into that subject, and if not, then we'll cut the call, I guess, at this point.
Well, I mean, honestly, Sam, there's not been one class that I've taken that I've regretted taking. All your classes, your wilderness survival classes, I mean, that was so empowering. So let me put it this way: if anybody listening is thinking that you're not sure if you want to take any of Sam's wilderness survival classes, I would say that is an absolute foundation to your knowledge base. There's a acronym KISS, Keep It Simple, Stupid. I like to think that your survival class is just that. You're getting down to the basics. I mean, it's down to the nitty gritty. Once you can achieve that, then everything else is cake. I mean, there's a level of anxiety that I had before I took your class, Sam. You know, so I had gotten the property before I took your class, and you know, I was like, okay, I've got to store. You know, I've got to store this food, and I've got to store these matches and these fire-making stuff, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. And it's because I didn't know that I could do without it. Now, it's hard, don't get me wrong, and I'm not going to go into what you teach. But when I walked away from your class, your survival class, the survival class, I was suddenly, a burden was lifted. I didn't have to have those things. They were nice to have. But suddenly there was a lot of things I didn't have to have anymore. And let's face it, you know, if you're thinking about homesteading, you're thinking about any kind of survival situation, even if something as simple and not simple. You know, I was going to say earlier that the disaster that I find myself planning for now is more of an unemployment thing. You know, if I were to lose my job for the next 6 months, could my family make it? You know, that's really hard. And it's traumatic. So there is a level of anxiety that comes when you think about these things. Because you've got a war game. You know, in order to plan for it, you've got to think about it. And when you think about it, you can sometimes get yourself a little depressed, like, oh, man, what do I do if that happens or if this happens? And you're like, man, I'm overwhelmed. So the classes you provided, Sam, have been outstanding. I mean, I've got a level of confidence now that I didn't have before. Your herbology classes, don't even get me started on those. I mean, wow. That's the best word there, wow. No longer do I have, if I've got this ailment or that ailment, do I have to run to my medicine cabinet and see what drug I can take? Now I have options. And that's really the biggest thing I have options. I'm no longer, it's like we were talking about earlier when, you tap into the county line, suddenly there's this whole slew of regulations that come along with it. Well, when you tap into society for whatever you're going to use, there's this whole slew of stuff that comes along with it. Okay, if I take this over-the-counter drug, okay, yeah, it's great, it's going to take away this ailment, but guess what? There's a side effect. I might die in 24 hours. I don't know. It's empowering. Your tracking class, I've used that on my property to see to experiment to see what tracks I've got on the property. Fortunately, I got hogs in the area, so those are pretty easy to find where they've run it up the ground. But so your tracking's been fantastic. Your herbology's been fantastic. Your wilderness survival's been fantastic. Paul and Gloria's permaculture and their urban survival is absolutely fantastic. I don't think, honestly, Sam, there's not a class that I have taken that I have regretted taking. Jason put on a class on bow making. Unfortunately, I didn't walk out with a bow because I got ahead of the class and I made a mistake. But my goodness, I can make a bow now if I want to, and I will. It's on my to-do list to do again. In fact, I think he's going to do another class, and I have full intention of jumping in on that one. You've got upcoming classes that are not coming to mind, but yeah, they're on my list of to-dos. So I cannot speak highly enough about what you're teaching there, Sam, and I just look forward to more. That's the bottom line. I want more, man.
Well, thank you, Joe. I wasn't fishing for a compliment, but I sure got one, and I appreciate it. Yeah, it's really important to me to know, just on a, purely, kind of basic level, what I'm teaching. This is why I'm kind of doing these. I'm doing. I'd like to do a short series of podcasts with students, with people who take my classes, and it's because I want to know, is this stuff? Are you taking it back to your world? I mean, I've always said this for my classes. If you come to my classes and it's not something that you can take home with you, then you shouldn't be here. Really. I mean, stay at home. And I say this jokingly, but it's like stay home and watch SpongeBob or whatever. I mean, the stuff that I am teaching, the stuff that I'm teaching is making people get outdoors. It's making people connect. It's making people become more self-aware, and it's bringing people closer to the earth. And that's part of my vision and my goal as well. And that doesn't, and that means a lot of, that can mean a lot of different things depending on the person. That means something different for everybody that comes and takes a class. And it should. Everybody's different. And so what I get the biggest thrill out of is knowing that people walk away and can say, hey, I learned this, I can do this now. Or like you said, I don't feel, hung up about the fact that I don't have what I used to consider a basic necessity, because it really wasn't a basic necessity. Or you're sitting there trying to string a line, and it's like, oh my gosh, I remember now I learned how to do a trucker stitch, and I learned a bunch of knots and quick release knots that are very useful now. Or maybe it's my kid is really got a hacking cough, and I can't just get rid of it, and I'm going to take care of it with herbs, because that's what my herbology classes are all about, is bringing medicine back to the people. And those are words that will probably haunt me one day, because, that's not something that the powers that be want us to do. Unfortunately, the whole urbanization and the whole specialization and assembly line living that we were talking about earlier in this hour, that breeds an entire industry with it. And that industry, it is not in their best interest for us to do things. It is not their best interest for us to travel back in time and live the way that our grandfathers or great-grandfathers or hunter-gatherers even, lived at all. It's not in their best interest. We are part of the machine that creates consumerism, creates profit on a never-ending ascension, on a never-ending scale of saying that
we've always got to have improvement. We've always got to have growth, and basically following a pattern that is not only unnatural, but it's actually not only unhealthy, even it is deadly to our species. And so the whole reason that I'm doing this is to be able to try to slow that growth down, that kind of unchecked almost growth in the way that a cancer cell grows. Honestly, it's just just unchecked exponential growth, and instead, just on a mental basis, I'm not talking population growth, even although that's part of it, but just on a mental level, for people to be able to slow their lives down enough to realize that a lot of the things that we think are necessary are really, and that's an illusion. That is really not necessary. We really don't have to have those things, and I'm not even talking about material things all the time either. I'm talking about just the general sense of distraction that we think we need, through life, in life all the time. So all of those things are a big part of it. And so having you, you are one of the people, one of the students that's come through a lot of these classes that I've seen, from a distance, being not really from a distance, but I've seen you without, talking to you about it, I guess is what I meant. I've seen you. I've observed that you are applying these things in your own life, and so that was part of the reason I really wanted to talk to you about it too, because I'm just really curious as to what kinds of things you have felt that you've used, and it's really great to hear you say that. So, good, man. I mean, I think this is maybe probably a good place to end. We've been talking for a while now. I didn't even expect it to go this long, and I'm really happy that it did, because we've got a lot of really good information.
I didn't even know I had information to give, Sam.
Yeah, you definitely did. It was great. I'm looking forward to maybe doing this again, down the road as other things, as you get to other things, so we can talk about that. But great. Well, thank you, Joe, and thanks for being on the show today. And we'll be dividing this up probably into a few episodes, just because it's pretty long. But I think it was a great. Great talk.
No, it was a pleasure. Thank you for asking.